Ambassador Alina Vasquez stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The room was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. Lights of 1,000 colors floated in the air. Delegates from 200 alien species sat in their seats, ranged in a giant circle that rose up toward the ceiling like a stadium. Alina had stood in this exact spot many times before. Today marked her 847th appearance before the council. She knew because she kept count. Every number represented a battle she had fought for humanity. Every number represented a loss. The human delegation presents its proposal, the automated voice announced. Resolution 7241, Emergency Asylum for Velthari Refugees. Alina cleared her throat and spoke. Honored delegates, the Velthari people face extinction. Their homeworld is dying. 4 million innocent beings need shelter. Earth and our colonies have the space. We have the resources. We ask only for the Council's approval to begin refugee operations. She had practiced this speech many times. She made it simple. She made it clear. She knew it would not matter. The Zythrani delegate rose from his seat. His name was Morith, and he was tall and thin, with gray skin and forearms. His mouth was full of small, sharp teeth that clicked together when he talked. The human delegate speaks with passion, Morith said. His voice was smooth, almost friendly. But Alina heard the mockery underneath. How touching. How very... human. Laughter rippled through parts of the chamber. Alina kept her face calm. However, Morith continued, the Velthari situation is complicated. There are many factors the humans do not understand. Their species is young. They have only traveled among the stars for 300 years. Perhaps when they mature, they will see why we cannot simply open our borders to every dying civilization. Alina wanted to scream. She wanted to ask what was so complicated about saving lives. But she had asked that question before, many times. The answer was always the same. Politics, territory, ancient grudges. Between species that humans had never been part of, the vote happened quickly. 173 species voted against the proposal. 22 voted in favor. 5 abstained. Humanity's resolution failed, just like all the others. Alina gathered her documents and prepared to leave. But Morith was not finished. Before the human delegate departs, he said, the Council has another matter to discuss. The border conflict between the Adrati Empire and the Corvani Federation has escalated. Both sides have requested neutral mediators. He turned his 4 eyes toward Alina. The Council nominates the human diplomatic corps for this duty. Alina stopped walking. She turned around slowly. You want us to mediate your war? She said. It was not a question. Humans are known for their persistence, Morith replied. Their stubbornness. These qualities make them adequate negotiators. The Council trusts that humanity will accept this honor. Honor, the word burned in Alina's chest. This was the way it always worked. Humanity was too young and too inexperienced to have a voice in Council decisions. But humanity was always experienced enough to clean up the Council's messes. Human engineers maintained the atmospheric processors on a dozen colony worlds. Human doctors had developed vaccines that saved 3 alien species from plague. Human soldiers had died in wars that protected trade routes humanity never profited from. Human diplomats had brokered peace between enemies who had fought for 1,000 years, and in return, no voting rights on major issues, no respect, no gratitude. Just more work. Alina looked at the Council. She looked at Morith and his sharp-toothed smile. She looked at the hundreds of delegates who saw humanity as useful tools and nothing more. No, she said. The word echoed in the chamber. Several delegates leaned forward, confused. The automated translator repeated the word in 100 languages. No, no, no. I am sorry, Morith said. The translator must have made an error. Did you say no? Your translator works perfectly, Alina replied. I said no. Humanity will not mediate your conflict. Humanity will not maintain your systems. Humanity will not fight your wars or solve your problems. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button, and a holographic document appeared in the air above her hand. This is an official notice from the United Earth Parliament. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. All human personnel will return to Earth-controlled space within 30 standard days. All human technology, services, and support will be discontinued. The chamber exploded with noise. Delegates shouted. Some laughed. Many looked at each other in confusion. "This is a joke," someone called out. "The humans are making a political statement." "They will be back," another voice said. "They need us. Where else will they go?" Morith raised his forehands for silence. When the noise died down, he looked at Alina with what might have been amusement. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said, "humanity has been part of this council for 3 centuries. Your species has benefited greatly from membership. Access to technology, trade agreements, protection from external threats. You cannot simply walk away." Lena smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Protection?" she repeated. "When the Carvex raiders attacked our colony on Proxima 3, we called for council assistance. Do you remember what happened, Delegate Morith?" Morith's expression flickered. He remembered. "The council debated for 2 weeks," Alina continued. "By the time you reached a decision, our people had already defeated the raiders themselves. Alone, with no help from anyone." She looked around the chamber one more time. "For 300 years, humanity has given everything to this council. We asked for nothing in return except basic respect. You could not even give us that. So now we leave. Build your own ships. Maintain your own colonies. Broker your own peace treaties. We wish you well." She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. "You're making a mistake," Morith called after her. "A terrible mistake. You will regret this." Lena stopped at the door. She looked back over her shoulder. "Oh, Delegate Moroth, you needed us. You just never realized it. And now you will learn what a galaxy without humans looks like." She walked out. The doors closed behind her. In the Great Hall, 200 species sat in stunned silence. A few were already making nervous jokes, convinced that humanity would return within days. Others were not so sure. High above the chamber, the automated systems hummed quietly. Systems designed by humans, maintained by humans, soon to be abandoned by humans. The countdown had begun. The first week after humanity's departure was filled with laughter. On every major news channel across the galaxy, commentators joked about the dramatic exit. They called it theater. They called it a tantrum. One popular Zithrani comedian did an impression of Ambassador Vasquez, pretending to cry and stomp her feet like a child. "The humans will return," experts said confidently. "They have no choice. They depend on council resources. Give them a few days to make their point, and everything will go back to normal." The council did not even bother to send a message asking humanity to reconsider. That would have been beneath their dignity. Instead, they continued with business as usual, confident that the silly humans would come crawling back soon enough. On day 8, the Meridian shipping lanes went dark. The Meridian lanes were the busiest trade routes in the galaxy. Thousands of ships passed through them every day, carrying food and medicine and technology between 100 worlds. For 60 years, human patrol vessels had protected these routes from pirates and raiders. Now those patrol vessels were gone. They had followed their orders and returned to Earth space. And into the vacuum they left behind were a violent species that lived in the asteroid fields at the edge of the Meridian lanes. For decades, fear of human warships had kept them quiet. They had learned the hard way that humans fought with a fury that no amount of stolen cargo was worth. But the humans were gone now. On the first day, the raiders took a small cargo ship. On the second day, they took 3. By the end of the week, they had captured a passenger transport carrying 2,000 Elaware civilians. The passengers were sold into slavery on the black market. No one ever saw them again. The Zithrani Dominion demanded that the council send a fleet to restore order. But there was a problem. The council did not have a unified fleet. Each species maintained its own military, and no one trusted anyone else to take command of joint operations. The humans coordinated our military efforts. Admiral Veth of the Corvani Federation admitted in a closed session. They were neutral. They had no territorial ambitions. We trusted them to lead because they never tried to use that power for their own benefit. Then we will find someone else to lead, Morith declared. How difficult can it be? Very difficult, as it turned out. The Zithrani volunteered to take command, but the Corvani refused to serve under their ancient enemies. The Synthli offered to lead instead, but no one trusted their motives. Arguments broke out. Accusations flew. 3 species threatened to withdraw from the Council entirely if their rivals were given military authority. Meanwhile, the raiders grew bolder. More ships vanished. More people died. On day 15, the atmospheric processors on Theta 7 began to fail. Theta-7 was a moon colony in the outer territories. 4 million Elaware lived there, in domed cities that depended on machines to create breathable air. Those machines were old. It's built nearly a century ago when the colony was founded, built by humans. When the processors started to break down, the Elaware engineers studied the problem. They understood the science. They could see what was wrong, but they did not know how to fix it. The machines used human designs, human components, human techniques. For 100 years, human maintenance crews had kept the systems running. The Elaware had never needed to learn how the machines actually worked. They called the Galactic Council for help. They begged for engineers who could repair the processors before the air ran out. Every species pointed to another. The Zithrani said it was not their responsibility. The Corvani said they lacked the expertise. The Synthli said they would help, but only in exchange for trade concessions that the Elaware could not afford. Someone must do something. The Elaware ambassador screamed in the council chamber. Our people are dying. No one moved. On Theta 7, the air grew thinner. Parents held their children and watched the oxygen meters drop. Engineers worked desperately to slow the failure, but they were fighting against machines they did not understand. By the time an evacuation fleet was finally organized, 12,000 colonists had died. The survivors were scattered across a dozen worlds as refugees. Their homes lost forever. And still, the situation grew worse. On day 22, the Adradi Empire and the Corvani Federation went to war. These 2 species had hated each other for 800 years. Their conflict was ancient, rooted in betrayals and massacres that happened before humanity even discovered fire. For the past century, human diplomats had maintained a fragile peace between them. Human mediators sat in on every negotiation. Human peacekeepers patrolled the border. Humans reminded both sides again and again that war would destroy them both. Now the humans were gone. And without their calming presence, old hatreds came rushing back. The first shots were fired over a disputed asteroid field. Within days, full-scale battle fleets were mobilizing. Within weeks, billions of soldiers were marching toward the front lines. The council called for peace. Both sides ignored them. Why should they listen? The council had no power to enforce its demands. The council could not even agree on which side to support. On day 28, the Synthli ambassador, named Tavor, stood before the remaining delegates and asked a question that no one wanted to answer. What exactly did the humans do for us? The council ordered its administrative staff to compile a report. The staff worked through the night, searching through records and databases. What they found shocked everyone. The report was 900 pages long. Humans had designed the translation algorithms that allowed different species to communicate. Humans had created the navigation charts that made safe, faster-than-light travel possible. Humans had built the banking systems, the communication networks, the medical databases. Humans had solved engineering problems that stumped the greatest minds of other civilizations. Humans had brokered peace treaties, trained doctors, fed refugees. They had done all of this for free. They had done all of this without asking for recognition. They had done all of this simply because it needed to be done. For 300 years, the galaxy had treated human contributions like air, invisible, essential, and taken completely for granted. Now the air was gone, and the galaxy was suffocating in his private chambers. Chancellor Morith of the Zithrani Dominion read the report 3 times. His 4 hands trembled slightly. He remembered laughing at Ambassador Vasquez. He remembered the mockery, the condescension, the casual dismissal of everything humanity offered. He remembered thinking that humans were useful tools, nothing more. He had been wrong. They all had been wrong. Morith set down the report and stared at the wall for a long time. Then he called an emergency session of the council. It was time to ask the humans to come back. 3 months had passed since. Humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. The great hall that once hosted 200 species now felt empty and cold. Half the seats stood vacant. Delegates had been called home to deal with crises that grew worse every day. Chancellor Morath looked at the remaining members and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Feared the Carvex raiders had grown from a nuisance into an empire. They controlled most of the Meridian shipping lanes now. Trade between the outer colonies had nearly collapsed. Prices for basic goods had increased by 300%. Some worlds were beginning to starve. The war between the Adrati and the Corvani had spread beyond their borders. Neighboring species were being forced to choose sides. Ancient alliances were breaking apart. New enemies were being made every day. The death toll had already passed 10 million. There was no end in sight. But the true catastrophe was something no one had expected. The economy of the entire galaxy was falling apart. It started with small things. Communication delays between star systems. Banking errors that lost millions of credits. Navigation computers that gave wrong coordinates. At first, everyone blamed technical problems. Equipment failures. Solar interference. Bad luck. Then someone realized the truth. All of these systems ran on human-designed software. Human-built hardware. Human-created networks. For 3 centuries, humans had given their technology to the galaxy freely. They had shared their inventions without asking for payment. They had let other species use their work as if it belonged to everyone, but it did not belong to everyone. It belonged to humanity. And when humanity left, they took their intellectual property with them. They did not sabotage anything. They did not destroy anything. They simply stopped maintaining it. They stopped sending updates. They stopped fixing bugs. They stopped sharing new developments. The Universal Translator, the program that allowed 1,000 species to understand each other, began to glitch. Sentences came out wrong. Meanings were lost. Diplomatic negotiations failed because no one could understand what the other side was saying. The banking networks, designed by human financial experts, started to crash. Transactions disappeared. Accounts were frozen. Entire planetary economies teetered on the edge of collapse. The navigation charts, updated monthly by human astronomers, became outdated. New asteroid fields were not mapped. Changed gravity wells were not recorded. Ships that trusted the old charts flew into danger. Some of them never came back. They built everything, Ambassador Tavor said quietly during one council session. We never noticed because they never complained. They just kept building, kept fixing, kept improving, and we took it all for granted. The council had no choice. They had to ask humanity to return. A delegation was assembled. 12 senior ambassadors from the most powerful species. They would travel to Earth's border and negotiate. They would offer humanity whatever they wanted. Territory, resources, full voting rights. Anything, Chancellor. He wanted to go, but his advisors warned him against it. It would look weak, they said. It would suggest that the Zithrani were desperate. We are desperate, Morath replied, but he stayed behind anyway. The delegation departed with great ceremony. News channels across the galaxy covered their journey. Commentators debated what humanity would demand. Some predicted that humans would ask for control of the council itself. Others thought they would want revenge. Punishment for centuries of disrespect. The delegation reached the border of human-controlled space after 2 weeks of travel. They expected to be stopped. They expected to be questioned, searched, perhaps even turned away. Instead, they were welcomed. A human escort vessel appeared beside their ship. Its captain, a young woman named Sarah Chen, greeted them politely and offered to guide them to Earth. We have been expecting you, Captain Chen said. The Premier will be happy to receive your delegation. The ambassadors were confused. No demands? No hostility? No security protocols? Are we not your enemies now? Tavor asked. Captain Chen laughed. It was a warm sound, without cruelty. Enemies. No, Ambassador. We were never enemies. We were just tired of being treated like servants. But we do not hate you. We never did. The journey through human space took 3 more days. What the delegation saw during those days changed everything they believed about humanity. Around Earth's moon, a city had been built. Millions of people lived there now, in gleaming towers that rose from the lunar surface. Ships moved constantly between the moon and the orbital stations that circled above it. Around Mars, terraforming projects had accelerated beyond anything the Council thought possible. Green patches were visible on the planet's surface. Rivers flowed where there had been only dust. Around Saturn, a ring of manufacturing platforms produced goods at an incredible rate. Ships, satellites, computers, medical equipment. The humans were not struggling. They were thriving. How is this possible? One ambassador asked. You have only been alone for 3 months. Captain Chen smiled. We were never alone, she said, and we were never truly part of your council either. For 300 years, we gave 30% of our productive capacity to maintaining galactic infrastructure. We did it freely because it needed doing. Now we have redirected those resources toward ourselves. She paused. Also, we made some new friends. The delegation soon learned what she meant. The Velthari refugees, the 4 million people the Council had refused to help, had been welcomed by humanity. They lived on Earth now, integrated into human society. And they were not alone. The Kreth, species of cyborgs that the Council had banned from membership for being unnatural. The Wanderers, a nomadic people that the Council had ignored because they had no homeworld. The Lithani, silicon-based beings that most species considered too strange to understand. All of them had been rejected by the Council. All of them had been welcomed by humanity. Together, they had formed something new. A coalition. A partnership. A family. The delegation arrived at Earth in silence. They had come expecting to negotiate with a desperate, isolated species. Instead, they found a growing alliance that no longer needed the Galactic Council at all. The ambassadors suddenly realized a terrible truth: they were not here to rescue humanity from isolation. They were here to beg for help. The Council delegation was brought to Geneva, the capital of the United Earth Parliament. They walked through streets filled with humans and aliens alike, all moving together without fear or hostility. Velthari scientists discussed research with human colleagues. Kreth engineers worked alongside human technicians. Children of different species played together in parks. Ambassador Tavor watched a young human girl share her lunch with a Lithoni child. The Lithoni did not eat food in the traditional sense. It absorbed minerals through its crystalline skin. But the human girl did not seem to care about the difference. She sat beside her friend and talked happily, while the Lithoni slowly absorbed nutrients from a bowl of polished stones. They do not fear each other, Tavor said quietly. Why would they? Captain Chen replied. They are neighbors. Friends. That is what community means. The delegation was led to the Parliament building, a grand structure of glass and steel that stood at the center of the city. Inside, they were escorted to a large meeting room where the leaders of humanity waited for them. Premier Yusuf Hassan sat at the head of the table. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. Beside him sat Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the woman who had walked out of the council chamber 3 months ago. She looked calm and rested, nothing like the exhausted diplomat the council remembered. Other figures filled the remaining seats. Representatives from the Velthari, the Kreth, the Wanderers, the Lithone. Leaders of species the council had rejected and forgotten. They all watched the delegation with expressions that ranged from curiosity to caution. Welcome to Earth, Premier Hassan said. Please, sit down. We have much to discuss. Chancellor Moroth had sent a list of talking points with the delegation. Offers of territory, promises of resources, guarantees of voting rights and full membership. The ambassadors had rehearsed their speeches carefully, but sitting in this room, surrounded by beings who had built something new and wonderful, those speeches suddenly felt hollow. Premier Hassan Tavor began slowly. "We have come to ask humanity to return to the Galactic Council." Hassan nodded. "We assumed as much. The galaxy is in chaos. Trade routes are under attack. Worlds are struggling. Wars are spreading. We need—" Tavor paused. The next word was difficult to say. "We need help." "We need more than help, Elena," Vasquez said. Her voice was not angry or bitter, just honest. "You need someone to fix problems you created. You need someone to maintain systems you never learned to run. You need someone to make peace between enemies who cannot stop fighting." The ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. She was right. They all knew she was right. "We are prepared to offer significant concessions," one ambassador said. "Full voting rights, territory, trade agreements. Whatever humanity wants." Premier Hassan raised his hand gently. "Before we discuss what we want, I have a question for you. In 300 years of council membership, did any species ever simply say, 'Thank you' to humanity?" Silence filled the room. "We built your communication networks," Hassan continued. "We created your navigation charts. We designed your medical systems. We brokered your peace treaties. We fought and died in wars that protected your trade routes. And in 300 years, not once did anyone acknowledge our contributions. Not once did anyone treat us as equals." He leaned forward. "We did not leave because we were ungrateful. We left because we realized that no matter how much we gave, you would never see us as partners. You would always see us as tools, useful but not worthy of respect." The ambassadors had no answer. What could they say? "He was right," however, Hassan said, and his voice softened. "We did not build this coalition out of bitterness. We built it because we believe in something different. A galaxy where species work together because they want to, not because they are forced to. A galaxy where every voice matters, regardless of how old a civilization is." He gestured to the other leaders at the table. "The Velthari came to us as refugees. Now they are partners. Their biological expertise has advanced human medicine by decades. The Kreth were banned by your council for being cyborgs. They brought us engineering techniques that transformed our manufacturing. The Wanderers had no home world. Now they help us explore regions of space no one else has mapped." Premier Hassan stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city gleamed in the afternoon sun. Every species here was rejected by the council. Every species here was told they were not good enough, not old enough, not pure enough. And every species here has proven that judgment wrong. Together, we have built something beautiful." He turned back to face the delegation. "We will not return to the Galactic Council. That chapter of our history is closed. But we will not abandon the galaxy either. That is not who we are." Lena Vasquez stood and activated a holographic display. A document appeared in the air, filled with text in a dozen languages. "This is the charter of the Terran Compact," she said. "A new alliance, open to any species willing to accept 3 principles: mutual respect, shared responsibility, equal voice." She looked at each ambassador in turn. The council treated membership as a privilege to be earned over centuries. The compact treats membership as a partnership to be built through action. Any species that is willing to contribute, willing to help, willing to treat others as equals, is welcome. "You are creating a rival to the council," one ambassador said. "No," Hassan replied. "We are creating an alternative. The council can continue to exist. We will not interfere. But we believe there is a better way, and we are offering that way to anyone who wants it." Ambassador Tavor thought about everything he had seen. The cooperation, the progress, the simple kindness of a human girl sharing lunch with an alien child. "If we join this compact," he said carefully, "what happens to our relationship with the council?" "That is your choice to make," Hassan said. "We do not demand loyalty. We do not ask you to abandon old alliances. We simply ask that you treat your compact partners with respect and work with them in good faith. Everything else is up to you." Tavor looked at his fellow ambassadors. He saw confusion on some faces, calculation on others. Some were clearly planning to reject this offer and return to the council with nothing. Others seemed to be thinking more carefully. "May we have time to consider?" Tavor asked. "Take all the time you need," Hassan said warmly. "This is not an ultimatum. This is an invitation. Whenever you are ready, we will be here." The meeting ended. The delegation returned to their ships to discuss what they had learned. But Tavor already knew what he would recommend. He had spent his entire career in the council, watching species compete and scheme and betray each other. He had never seen anything like what the humans had built. He had never imagined it was possible. 10 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. In those 10 years, everything had changed. The Terran Compact had grown from a small coalition of rejected species into something far larger. 47 species joined in the first year. By the 5th year, that number had passed 100. Now, 212 species called themselves Compact members, and more applications arrived every month. The old Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. Only 19 species remained loyal to it, and that number shrank with each passing year. Young diplomats questioned why their government stayed in an alliance that accomplished nothing. Old leaders who remembered the glory days found themselves unable to explain why those days had ended. The answer was simple, though few wanted to admit it. The council had been built on hierarchy, on the idea that some species were better than others, on the belief that power came from age and tradition rather than cooperation and goodwill. The compact was built on different principles. Entirely, Premier Elena Vasquez stood at the podium of the compact assembly hall. The room was even larger than the old council chamber, but it felt warmer somehow. Maybe it was the way delegates sat together in mixed groups rather than isolated blocks. Maybe it was the sound of laughter and conversation that filled the air before sessions began. Maybe it was simply the knowledge that everyone here had chosen to be here, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. 10 years ago, Elena said, I walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. Many people thought I was making a mistake. Many people said humanity would regret leaving. They said we needed the council more than the council needed us. She paused and looked out at the assembly. Humans and Velthari, Kreth and Wanderers, Lithonia and dozens of species who had joined later, species from the outer reaches of the galaxy who had never felt welcome in the old council. They were wrong, Elena continued. Not because we were stronger than they thought. Not because we were smarter or braver or better. They were wrong because they misunderstood what makes a civilization great. She pressed a button, and images appeared on the screens around the chamber. Pictures of compact projects across the galaxy. Hospitals built on worlds that had never had proper medical care. Schools teaching children of different species to learn together. Trade routes protected by joint patrols. Refugees given new homes and new hope. The council believed that greatness came from power. From controlling others. From accumulating territory and resources and influence. They measured success by how many species feared them. Lena shook her head slowly. The compact measures success differently. We measure success by how many problems we solve together. By how many lives we improve. By how many beings look at our alliance and feel hope instead of fear. In the audience, a Zytharani diplomat sat quietly and listened. His name was Keth, and he was young by his species standards. He had grown up hearing stories about humanity's betrayal, about how the humans had abandoned the galaxy in its hour of need. Those stories felt hollow now. He had spent the past month traveling through compact space, seeing with his own eyes what these rejected species had built. He had visited the Velthari biological research centers, where scientists were developing cures for diseases that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. He had toured the Kreth engineering academies, where students of every species learned to build machines that the old council could never have imagined. He had eaten dinner with a human family on Earth, simple people who welcomed a stranger into their home without hesitation. They had asked about his world, his culture, his hopes for the future. They had listened with genuine interest. They had treated him like a person, not like a representative of an enemy power. No one in the council had ever treated him that way. Alina was still speaking. When we left the council, some people asked why humans had helped so much in the first place, why we had given freely without expecting return. They thought it was weakness. They thought we were foolish. She smiled. They never understood. We did not help because we expected gratitude. We helped because helping others is who we are. It is part of our nature, written into our souls. We cannot see someone in need without wanting to reach out. We cannot watch others suffer without trying to ease their pain. The assembly was silent now, listening. But we learned something important during our time in the council. Helping others is only meaningful when it is mutual. When you give and give without receiving anything in return, not even basic respect, eventually the giving becomes empty. It becomes servitude rather than partnership. She looked around the room. That is why the compact is different. Here, everyone gives. Everyone receives. Everyone is valued. We do not have senior members and junior members. We do not have masters and servants. We have partners. We have family. In the observer's gallery, Keth felt something shift inside him. He had come to the assembly as a spy, sent by his government to gather intelligence on the compact. He was supposed to find weaknesses, vulnerabilities, ways that the council could undermine this rival alliance. Instead, he had found something he never expected. Hope. The session ended with applause and celebration. Delegates from different species embraced each other. Plans were made for new joint projects. Someone started singing, and others joined in. Strange harmony of voices from 100 different worlds. Keth remained in his seat for a long time, watching. Finally, he made a decision. He walked down from the gallery and approached a human staff member. "Excuse me," he said. "I would like information about applying for compact membership." The human smiled warmly. "Of course. Let me get you the forms." "Is this for yourself or for your government?" Keth hesitated. His government had not authorized this. They would be furious when they found out. He might face punishment, exile, worse. But he thought about the human family who had welcomed him into their home. He thought about the Velthary scientists working to cure diseases. He thought about the children of different species playing together in parks. "Myself," he said quietly. "For now, just myself." The human nodded without judgment. That is how it often starts. One person at a time. One choice at a time. That is how change happens. Keth filled out the application that night. 6 months later, he stood before the compact assembly as the newest individual member. A Zithrani who had rejected his government's hatred and chosen partnership instead. He was not the last. He was not even close to the last. One by one, being by being, species by species. The galaxy learned what humanity had known all along. You do not build a great civilization through fear and power. You build it through kindness. Offered freely to anyone willing to offer kindness in return. And that is something worth walking away for.